Welcome back, all. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Sarah, and I'm your host at What's on Your Plate podcast. Joining me today is Julius Serrano, coach, author, and all around inspiring human. Julius is here talking about resiliency. It's been the cornerstone of his life and his work, and has been necessary in a way that isn't typical for everyone. Listen into his remarkable story, and you'll absolutely be motivated to stop staying in your excuses in life. Here we go. I am absolutely thrilled to bring Julius Charles Serrano to the conversation today. Julius turned the devastating loss of his sight into a story of triumph. Overcoming fear and uncertainty, he became a successful IT professional and an internationally certified results coach. Today, he empowers countless individuals with proven strategies to rise above adversity, realize their potential, and achieve fulfillment. His book, The Resilience Code, intertwines his personal story of becoming blind with tangible and real approaches to becoming more responsible for your own life, regardless of your circumstances. Julius, I have to say, just right away, that I really enjoyed your book.
Thank you.
To just let our listeners know, who may be watchers as well, depending on which platform that you are enjoying this conversation from. Julius is here fully and present and incredibly engaged with the conversation. But rest assured that even if he is not looking at the camera, Julius is completely here with us and all in on this conversation.
Totally. Thank you so much, Sarah. So thank you for having me here on this podcast, What's on Your Plate. And hello, my friend. Uh, Even if my eyes would be wandering about, I am a person who is totally blind. So rest assured that I'm speaking throughout this conversation. I'm speaking from my heart to yours. So thanks again, Sarah, for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes, I am too. And just thank you so much for already just engaging and connecting so much with our audience. I only can imagine, most of us can only imagine the different way that you have had to go about things in your life based on losing your sight at quite a young age, 16.
Mhm.
Most of us are learning to drive a car at that time in our lives, learning to, do things that are helping us gain independence and empowerment. And you had to go about that in an entirely different way.
Totally. So, taking you back many years ago, I was born nearsighted. So, I could still see. So, I was a typical young person enjoying comic books, Saturday morning cartoons. But the doctors diagnosed a rare condition in my eyesight. So, it had something to do with the optic nerves. And apparently, there's no technology that can resolve that. So as I was growing up in my teens, as you've mentioned, when I was like 14, 15, 16, my eyesight started to deteriorate. And it was a huge challenge for me because this was a period where um, an individual is just ident- um, identifying who they really are. It's like I'm just forming my identity. And all of a sudden, here comes this challenge, which caused a lot of emotional struggle, anxiety, particularly sadness, anger, and sometimes blame. So it was a completely different experience, especially when I was hearing about my classmates. I was in high school when I was hearing about my classmates learning new life skills, as you mentioned, like learning to drive, um, being in a relationship. And because I was so focused on that difficulty, of becoming blind. It's as if I was in a different world, which only consisted of me there.
I absolutely feel like I could understand how that would be true. That isolation that you must have felt during that time in your life was really confusing and scary, I'm sure. And you described the other feelings of just being angry and sad and even the blame. And it is similar to grieving the loss of somebody. You were grieving a loss. At the time, what was for you the outlook on your future? What did you envision for
Very
yourself?
dark.
Hmm.
I didn't know, like when it comes to like education, I didn't know the next step. I just finished high school. So my only option, because I did not know anybody, although I had a very strong support network, which I'm sure we'll be getting to. I did not know anybody who was experiencing the same experience that I had, becoming blind. It's as if, so there I was in my room, my dark room, literally. Um, and I was seeing like, I could still see, but it was like various shades of gray. So at that time, I did not know who I could relate with. And um, the outlook was very dark. I didn't know. I was alone. I felt alone. I had a beautiful support network, as I've said, but I did not know what the next step was. How would I be able to enjoy the same things that I enjoyed? How would I be able to make friends? How would I be able to study? That was the main thing that weighed in my mind. And I'm sure it also weighed in my family's minds as well. So, yes, definitely the outlook, it was different. Looking back, it was very different from my outlook when I was nearsighted, but there was a lot of uncertainty and emotional struggle, as well as like darkness, because I didn't know what the next step was.
Completely fair to feel that way.
Mhm.
I can't imagine anybody approaching that transition in life in any other way other than feeling that helplessness and despair and uncertainty. But you are somebody who found your way beyond that, I feel like earlier than a lot of people would have, beginning to just be aware of resourcefulness, how you could just shift your focus and perspective in order to empower yourself.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, Sarah. Um, I believe that um, with the silence and the isolation came a lot of time. I had a lot of time to think about my life. I was alone most of the time. My family did their best um, to comfort me, to provide practical and emotional support. But in that period of being alone, it gave me time to reflect, to go deep within, and just um, tap into. I guess I was very young. Tap into the subconscious, my inner wisdom, which enabled me to realize what I still had. Yes, my eyesight, I didn't. It was deteriorating until it went to a point wherein I couldn't perceive any light anymore. I could still hear. I could still enjoy my um, cassette tapes. It was the late 90s back then. So I could still hear the documentaries. I can still listen to TV. I call it watching. Blind people can also use the word watch. That's all right. Um, I could still hear my loved one's voice. I could still chat for hours with my classmates on the telephone, on the landline telephone. So definitely, spending all of that time being alone really helped in terms of like resourcefulness. What do I still have? As well as the other things that I discovered in that in those moments of solitude.
Julius, I feel like you accidentally stepped into a knowing in your life that most of us try to force. And by that, I mean, most of us are not sitting in solitude, in the silence, in the stillness that we know we could deeply benefit from, just to be able to listen to our inner self, to really feel connected with who we are and what we need and what we want. You had no choice but to do that. And as a
Totally, yeah.
result, it created something beautiful for you that the rest of us can't seem to find.
Hmm. Hmm. And I believe a lot of it, I totally agree, by the way, and I believe a lot of it was caused by just letting go. I sat there and was compelled to do nothing. And with that, I had a lot of time. And as the days progressed, I just said, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna let go. I'm gonna stop forcing reality to go back to where it was. I'm gonna let go. And when I let go, I think like as you said, accidentally, totally, um, letting go gave way to like mental clarity. Because I wasn't forcing my way to go back to where it was because that's impossible. I had a new life now.
Right. There was a surrender of sorts that
Yes,
had to come in order for you to be able to move forward. But resourcefulness didn't mean that you had all the answers to all the problems either.
totally. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
So, no longer assigning yourself the sadness that you found in the literal darkness, it was, you were learning that it was okay to feel great. It was
Yes.
okay to
Totally.
find some of that
Hmm.
happiness.
Hmm. Hmm. A turning point there. I've also talked about it in the Resilience Code. My family was always there, and they did their best to uh, keep things on a high vibration, so to speak.
Mhm.
I'm still there with them in family celebrations, and I was completely present and listening to them. Although I cannot see the smiles on their faces, the um, the pranks, the jokes that they were doing, I still could hear them. And at that point, you know, as I continued to attend these family gatherings, even with my friends, a truth started to come to me, and I started tuning in. And that truth said, it's okay to to feel good. The emotions that I felt from becoming blind are not the only emotions that I would be feeling for the rest of my life. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to have a positive outlook. It's okay to be at peace with what has happened.
I love that so much. And again,
Mhm.
it's sort of like going through the motions and the stages of the grief of loss of a person. I
Yes.
feel like
Hmm. Hmm.
the loss of your sight is a great loss. It deserves to be grieved. But finding
Hmm.
your way through that and moving into the direction that you did professionally, for one, is pretty remarkable. I don't think that there's a lot of realization in what you do in terms of your line of work of I don't want to speak for you. I'll let you certainly discuss that, but the IT places that you find yourself in as a blind person, digital accessibility is amazing. And I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
Thank you so much. So, um, after building like the resilience that I needed, I think that's the time when the opportunities have manifested in my life. So just a quick overview. So there was I've lost my eyesight. I realized, I had to adapt. So what do I need to do? The first thing is I had to figure out what is my next step for my education. So people told me about learning how to read Braille. And there I was learning this new Braille system, which I'm grateful for because I still had my hands, my resources. And I was very grateful to one of these teachers who was a colleague of the teacher that was teaching me Braille. And she told me about a computer school for the blind. And that computer school for the blind opened a lot of possibilities because, using computers, when I became blind, I had no idea that blind people can actually use computers. And when I finally attended that computer training, I sat in front of the computer, I pressed the key, and it spoke the letter. So it's like, wow, imagine the possibilities. Even if I can't see the monitor, I'll be able to type documents. I will be able to even browse the internet. It was the early days of the internet back then in the Philippines where I was. But it opened a lot of doors in terms of accessibility. It enabled me to go to college. This assistive technology that we call the screen reader helped me adapt, provided resources that I previously did not have access to. So I went to a mainstream college, took on computer science, and then eventually found work in the accessibility space, which is very dear to my heart because accessibility enables people with disabilities to use, interact, operate with, perceive, and enjoy digital content.
Thank you for sharing all of that and just the emphasis on how important it is for everybody to have the availability to do so, to enjoy, to use, to work with, to use things as a tool, just like anybody else with their sight or hearing, anything that somebody else may have lost, they can use it too.
Totally, yeah.
The work that you are doing professionally, in addition to your own loss of sight, inspired you to help other people in similar situations and brought you to becoming an author, the Resilience Code. It's
Yes,
remarkable.
yes. Thank you. It was a very exciting experience. And so as I worked in the IT industry, I've spent like 18 years, close to 2 decades, being able to work side by side with IT professionals, helping them understand the importance of accessible technology, screen readers, and other assistive technologies, help them design websites that everybody, including people with disabilities, can enjoy. Um, I also started to experience the same challenges of IT professionals because I was one of them. And as I was, being an IT professional, I was also very passionate in personal development. So when I'm not training people on accessibility, you could find me listening to personal development audiobook or listening to an ebook through my screen reader. And I came to a point wherein, how could I also help people with the knowledge and the skills that I've developed in terms of personal development. And it took a long time, but I decided to, first of all, um, step into a new career. So I'm still an IT professional. I love accessibility and helping people realize the importance of content that is usable and accessible to everybody. But as growth is also one of my core values, I decided to realize, what can I do next? And since I'm a lifelong enthusiast for personal development, I decided to pursue a journey into results coaching. And one of the things that I realized, I need to be clear on the people that I would like to help. And since IT professionals are my people, I know I have lived experience in the challenges, the difficulties, the adversities, as well as the breakthroughs and joys of being an IT professional. I decided to choose IT professionals as the main people that I would love to serve. Of course, if anybody comes to me and they need help and they're coachable, I'm very much happy to help them as well. But IT professionals, they are my people. And as you've mentioned, one of the things as I was pursuing this coaching journey, I decided to create something that could reach more people. And so I decided, after getting coaching myself and getting mentoring, the main um, realization that I've gotten was that, I would like to write about my experience and just share it with everybody. And the main message of my life is resilience, based on what I've experienced in losing my sight, because I have lived experience there. I have learnings, knowledge, and tools that I can share with everybody.
You absolutely do, Julius. And when I read through your book, that was incredibly evident, the tools that you do have to share. Talk to us about how somebody starts to build a foundation of resiliency.
Awesome. The first thing for me, which I believe would be very helpful, is to acknowledge the emotions that come with experiencing the adversity. Back when I lost my eyesight, I had overwhelming sadness, anxiety, frustration, anger, blame. And I realized in those moments of silence, I won't be able to make the next step if I'm still carrying these emotions. So the first step, I believe, is to acknowledge the emotions. Because what I've discovered is that most of the time, it's not the adversity that is difficult. It is the emotions that you feel as a result of the adversity that is mainly causing the difficulty. And then the next step, it's different for everybody. So it really doesn't matter if it takes you a couple of days, a couple of months, even a couple of years. As long as you're in that process of acknowledging what you feel and being able to let it go. And it's a continuous process. It doesn't mean that you've already acknowledged your emotions. They're not gonna be appearing anymore. It's a continuous process. And what I've discovered after that is just to be able to take responsibility for your life. You may not have chosen to experience that adversity, but it is your responsibility to choose what you're going to do next, to choose the responses, to choose your actions and thoughts.
Absolutely. The way that you have really leaned into that responsibility is the difference between somebody who just kind of sits in that solitude and heaviness for the duration of their lives versus somebody who chooses to change the perspective and look at things in a way that allows them to do something beneficial for themselves and everybody else with what they have on their plate in life, essentially.
Totally, yeah. And I love how you mentioned perspective. Um, what I've also discovered is when it comes to perspective, you would be able to like shift the perspective from this particular outlook gradually to a more empowering outlook. And a lot of it is can be done by sometimes physically moving to another environment or shifting. If you cannot physically move to another environment, you could choose to like shift the perspective to another identity. So yeah, when it comes to perspective, what I've discovered is that it's super powerful to shift your viewpoint or perspective to somebody who is in a more empowered state or in a more loving state. For example, when you're experiencing some difficulty, you've already acknowledged the emotions. The next thing that you can do is to um, take some time to shift your perspective and ask empowering questions, such as, what would my best friend say in this situation? Imagine, or you could also imagine, an empowered individual who's already who's already risen up from this adversity. How would they approach this situation? What actions would they take in order to move past and build resilience and rise above what they're experiencing right now? So I totally love what you mentioned about like perspective.
Thank you. Thank you for expanding on that. And it's true. It's like the idea of if you were really talking poorly to yourself or really putting
Mhm.
yourself down, berating yourself, if you spoke that same way to somebody that you loved, they probably wouldn't want to be around you anymore. They probably wouldn't want to be your
Yeah,
friend anymore.
absolutely.
So it's treating yourself in that same way that you would treat somebody that you love and
Mhm.
uplifting that person, empowering that person so that they may change that perspective on whatever the challenge is before them. I think that's so important.
Totally.
And the way you sat with yourself in your thoughts in that solitude, that is a period of time I have to believe, most of us do that in microscopic doses compared to what you did. But when you're able to do that for a duration of time, really being able to learn how to speak to yourself and listen to yourself, I think is a skill in and of itself that honestly a whole nother book could be written on.
Yeah,
Just
totally.
the ability to truly hear and to uplift yourself, to speak to yourself in a way that allows you to really just intentionally step forward into what your purpose is
Hmm.
very inspiring, Julius. You did
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Thank you. And I love what you mentioned about like self-talk and being able to speak to yourself and listen
Mm.
because I started with like real the most type the most unpleasant type of conversations with myself. Of course, I was in a point wherein I blamed myself until the silence, the silence, the time alone really helped me. It's like I got tired of being awful, of speaking to myself in a very unpleasant way, of being mean to myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I realized, as through conversations, the person who should be supporting me the most is me. I mean, I have a wonderful support network, but if I don't start to speak to myself, to acknowledge myself, and to listen to my thoughts and my ideas, my own ideas, I won't be able to get past the adversity. So it's very important to like um, to speak to yourself in an empowering and a kind way, as well as to listen to the thoughts that you have and acknowledge them.
Definitely. And it's the idea that we all have choices. What we
Hmm.
think is within our power. We can either focus on despair and helplessness, or we can
Hmm.
focus on hope and determination,
Yes, yes, it's all about choice.
as well as finding that network and community or tribe, whatever terminology we'd like to use, whatever resonates with our listeners in that regard. But um, it is important to acknowledge that none of us can go it alone. We do need
Mm,
the support of other people to help us along our path, no matter what path that is.
totally, yeah. And this is, what I would call the support network that you have when you're experiencing adversity. One of the keys that could really help you um, move past that or break through is a strong support network. So when I uh, studied in that computer school for the blind, it really opened up my eyes figuratively because I met computer instructors who were also totally blind. It's like,
Mm.
you mean you can have a fulfilling career teaching people, changing people's lives, giving them a more empowering future? Because these are people who have been where I was. They have also lost their eyesight. Some of them were even born blind. And so I did my best to connect with them, to learn about their experiences and their journeys. Because um, looking back, now I realize that the reason why I was drawn to them, to these computer instructors, as well as to my classmates, because some of them we are all vision impaired in that class, but some of them have been blind for a longer time than me. So I was there, like um, listening to their experiences and how they were able to navigate the journey in their life and have a fulfilling life as well. So I consider them to be, my second support network. My first one was my family, my mom, my siblings, and my relatives, as well as my friends. So definitely, having people to walk beside you and even to walk in front of you has been very helpful in terms of like building resilience and overcoming adversity.
I can see how that would be even more true for someone who is uh, visually impaired, that's needing to have the support and the guidance and the inspiration of those that have come before them, so to speak, those that have
Mhm,
been
mhm.
doing this and walking this path longer and figuring out the way, so that others can follow behind and do the
Oh yeah.
same thing.
Mhm.
And just the idea that there were other blind people not just showing up to learn how to utilize computers, but blind people were teaching that
Right,
to other
right.
blind people. So it was the idea of like, not only can I learn this, but I
Mhm,
can then empower other people to do the same. I can teach as well as learn,
mhm,
even with the seeming limitation before me.
mhm. Yeah, totally. And I was wonderfully blessed because after finishing that computer course for the vision impaired, I received opportunities to also do some trainings. I spent some time being a computer instructor, teaching what I've already learned, like teaching younger people how to use the computer. These are like younger people who are also vision impaired, and just being able to share with them what I've learned, sharing the same opportunity, opening the same types of doors for them in terms of like assistive technology and information technology.
Well, I mean, you were just an absolute true example of somebody that has turned their challenges or their pain into something incredibly purposeful and meaningful in this world.
Mhm.
The way that you're really full circling the experience of learning and now teaching is incredibly inspiring.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about how you how you coach other professionals. And I know that you use the term like those are your people. Um, what other challenges? Because you're not coaching just blind people, is that correct? It's
Mhm.
all
Yep.
IT
Mhm.
professionals. So
It's
talk to me
all
about
IT
the
professionals.
challenges of the professionals within the IT world and how you are helping those people specifically.
Mm. So, you know, I myself, I've been an IT professional for many years, and what I've discovered is that there are common challenges of IT professionals. You know, um, stress that is left unmanaged. You know, burnout, and the what I found is one of the biggest ones: unfulfillment. People in the IT industry, because it's such a fast-paced type of career, one of the challenges that they have is like they keep on working and working until it gets to a point wherein they become burnt out and unfulfilled, especially. So how I help them is, I coach them through what they're experiencing, whether it is unfulfillment, burnout, a decision that they need in their career. And I help them focus on the results that they want to manifest. So we work together in terms of, what would you like to achieve in the next 6 months or 12 months? And then we identify all of the roadblocks that they have because it's different for everybody. The main challenges that one IT professional could have would be like emotions that they haven't addressed or acknowledged yet. For another IT professional, maybe it could be limiting beliefs. And for others, it could be inner conflict. You know, I want this thing, but I believe another thing. So I'm taking a different action. So we work throughout that to help them uh, get in alignment. So when it comes to like alignment, you're addressing the challenges that you have, and then only then could you start planning and implementing the actions that you need to take in order for you to make that result that you identified into reality.
No doubt the people that you're helping are really uniquely served by what you're offering because when somebody who seems to have just an impossible challenge of their own is helping somebody who seemingly has less of a challenge, at least on the
Mm,
surface, maybe superficially. I feel like there's a lot of, at least I would look at that from the perspective of, well, I'll just bring the running analogy into play here. I'm a
mm,
distance
yeah.
runner.
Yeah. Mhm,
And, it's not uncommon in races, half marathons, marathons, and beyond to see somebody with prosthetic legs and they're running the race. And then I think about my own legs that maybe are hurting or maybe feel tired or something, but somebody next to me is doing this with no legs at all, or at least
mhm,
not their
mhm,
own. So it leaves me
mhm,
thinking about, well, what is my excuse exactly? If,
mhm, mhm,
I am seemingly uh, fully capable in my
mhm,
body in terms of like ability to walk or in your case to see, and the person next to me is not. It shrinks the problem, I feel like,
mhm.
and
Yes.
helps me
Mhm,
see a little bit a different perspective. Again, bringing us back to that perspective of what exactly is the problem and is it actually a problem?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, totally. I love what you mentioned about the running analogy and it like seeing somebody with prosthetics. And I believe that in a way it's like you're drawing inspiration from that individual, drawing the positive energy and implementing it into your life. And I love what you mentioned about like shrinking the problem because as you're like communicating with somebody and you know that they've been through a certain type of experience, you would be able to look at your problem and just look at it at a different perspective or angle and draw like inspiration and positive energy from another individual in order for you to um, collapse or shrink the problems. So I totally love that.
Yes. Yeah, it really does just bring to mind that mentality of what's your excuse? Again, I'll use that term because it just feels so relevant to so many situations in life when you can just reframe
Mm,
that
yes.
way of thinking. I love that way of explaining it too, reframing something to just not get stuck in any one way of feeling like you're in something impossible.
Mm, yeah, totally. So when it comes to reframing, I totally love that you mentioned that. So for me, it's like imagine um, looking through a camera and looking at so looking through the lens of a camera and seeing a huge mountain. You can actually reframe your perspective and focus on a tree. When you focus on a tree, you can learn from it. You can take inspiration from it. So you're not looking at the entire mountain, you're looking at the specific part of that mountain. And in that situation, you will be able to look at it at a different perspective. It's not so huge. I can see this particular area of the mountain. And if that tree is at the foot of the mountain, I can, start here and eventually work my way if that's part of your journey.
I love the way you explain that. The idea that we don't have to climb or tackle the whole mountain at one time as well,
Mhm.
really comes to mind when I envision what you just described there. Focusing in on something smaller, but also using it as a way to just take smaller steps towards something bigger.
Yeah, totally.
Julius, your book, um, is amazing. Again, I'll just say that. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
reading it, and thank you again for sending it to me. That was an absolute gift. Um, what is your hope? Who specifically, or maybe there isn't anybody specific, but if there is, who are you hoping that this book reaches most?
It's for you who is experiencing any type of adversity, whether it's in a specific life area, in your relationships, in yourself, whether it's a physical challenge that you're experiencing, and in any life area. It's for you. If you're watching right now, I wrote the Resilience Code because I believe that the four keys inside the book can help you not only bounce back, but also build resilience in order for you to move forward and become a better version of yourself. So if you're experiencing any adversity right now, any challenge, any hardship, any difficulty, I believe that the Resilience Code, the four keys inside this book will help you.
Yes, and those four keys are the absolute tangible mention that I spoke
Mhm.
about earlier in the conversation. It's not
Mm.
just a lot of
Mhm.
like fluff and flair in terms of kind of helping people feel empowered. You're offering real solutions within your book, step by step, even to help people move forward, move into the direction that is meant for them.
Mhm. Yep, totally. And I love what you mentioned earlier about creating your foundation, because that's exactly, you're going to learn more about creating your foundation. We've talked about expressing your emotions. So I'm
Mhm.
going to take you through step by step on how you to actually do that. Taking responsibility. There's an entire chapter about taking complete responsibility. So after creating the foundation, you're going to learn about optimizing adaptability and perspective. We talked earlier about perspective and being able to adapt. There are full chapters about those principles and more. And then we're going to talk about connection and purpose. We discussed the support network. You have an entire chapter that discusses, how exactly, what is a support network, why it's important, and how to build it in terms of like getting people to support you and people that you support as well. And then you'll be able to learn how to elevate your resilience to results. Now that you've built the resilience, the common question that professionals ask is, what's next? And I believe that, you've experienced that adversity, you've built that resilience for a purpose. Now we identify the next steps in your life, the next desired results that you would like to achieve.
Thank you for just the recap of the book and what people can expect when they pick it up and enjoy it and absorb all the knowledge within it. I'm sure that that is something that is going to really resonate with our listeners. And one thing that you said in all of that that really just feels important to touch on again is after that period of grief, after you are through a lot of those emotions and into the part where you are accepting and at peace with whatever the challenge is before you, taking on the responsibility to empower yourself, I feel like is true no matter what circumstance you find yourself in, but nobody's going to do it for you.
Totally, yeah. Taking responsibility is a journey that you need to take yourself. Of course, there are people who can help you, but a huge part of it is like accepting, releasing the blame, first and foremost, accepting what has happened, and choosing what to do next, choosing to become a better person, choosing to choosing the emotions that you will feel and choosing the actions, as well as choosing the people who can help you along the way.
I love all of that because I think a lot of times we forget that we do have choices. We may not
Mm-hmm.
like the choices all the time, but they are there. And the more we acknowledge that and choose the ones that are right, even when they feel hard, the more control we have of our futures. Julius, if you were going to leave our listeners thinking about something today, what would it be?
Well, it's all about resilience. If you are going through a specific adversity in any life area, please know that there are things that you can do. There is a specific structured approach, and for me, it's the resilience code. It's up to you to take on that journey, whether you would like to read my book or whether you would like to do further research on the things, because it's different for everybody. I'm offering you a specific set of keys, 4 keys. And if this resonates with you, then I'd love to have you along with this journey of building resilience, overcoming adversity, as well as becoming a better version of yourself, a more empowered version, a more fulfilled version, a more loving version of yourself.
Thank you for that. Thank you for encouraging people to be more loving to themselves and talk kindly to themselves, empower themselves. This has been just a really phenomenal conversation. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for wanting to be here and for sharing your story and for helping us remind ourselves that we can be resilient.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And it's been an honor to have this conversation. And thank you, my friend. Thank you for being with us, with Sarah and me in this conversation. And I wholeheartedly encourage you to um, stay tuned and watch the other episodes on What's on Your Plate.
Thank you for that. And of course, all the ways to stay connected to you and links to the resilience code and all ways to stay connected with you, Julius, will be in the show notes for our listeners.
Thank you so much.
One of the thoughts that stayed with me after talking to Julius was, it's not the adversity that is the difficult part. It's the emotions felt from the adversity that is hard. A true story of how one has changed their pain into purpose, their challenges into opportunity. Julius inspires us to show up for our lives, no matter what tries to get in our way. All ways to connect with Julius are in the show notes, as well as the link to his book, The Resilience Code. Please take the time to follow or subscribe to What's on Your Plate podcast. Leave comments or review this episode. Share it with a friend. Doing any or all of those things helps keep this platform sustainable and allows for more conversations to be shared. I truly appreciate your support and look forward to being back here with you again really soon. Until next time, friends.